Ouija boards are so dangerous, you guys, and these are the type of things that can happen if you choose to play with them. So forewarning you guys, these stories are creepy. Make sure that you are saying your prayers before and after this video because it does have to do with the Ouija board and you already know. Before I get started, I get a lot of stories from people from but I get like no submissions from people from YouTube. So you guys, if you would like to send me your story and you're from YouTube, I would love to hear it. So please send me your stories. We're gonna call today's submitter Kate. And when Kate grew up, she grew up in a haunted house. So creepy things were already happening before this incident. Now, one day her sister went to a birthday party that was also a sleepover. And at this sleepover, the kids and her that were at the house decided that they wanted to play with the Ouija board. Now, as they started to play with the Ouija board, her sister started talking to a spirit. Now, the spirit told her sister that it was her guardian angel and that all her sister had to do in order to have her really come into her life and guard her was to allow her to come inside of her home. So she had to invite this spirit inside of her home. Now, for whatever reason, her sister did do this. She invited the spirit into their home. Not the home that she was staying in, but the home that was her house. Kate said that as soon as her sister got home, everybody started noticing weird things around the house. They started noticing walking, footsteps in other rooms when people weren't home. They had carpeted floors, so the footsteps were kind of muffled, and they did have a couple of dogs, so at first they didn't pay much attention to these footsteps because they figured it might just be the dogs. It was not the dogs. They lived in a Rambler style home, and at the end of the hallway where it came to a T and would split to go to the bedrooms, her sister and her would see shadows out of the corner of their eyes all the time. Sometimes they would even see things peeking around the corners of the house. Little things started moving in her sister's room as well, like tags in her closet on her clothes would just start flipping around back and forth, almost like the string was being spun in between someone's thumb and index finger. So like this went on for months, but their parents never believed them. They just chalked it up to their kids having a big imagination, as usual. That is until one night. She used to sleep with her bed across from the bedroom door and flush with a white wall, and her door would always be open. Now across the hall was her sister's room, and her door would also always be open. This night would be what began her fear of the dark and the unknown. So she's sleeping, and she wakes up to something, and she has no idea what it is, but all she knows is that it startled her awake. After she opens her eyes, she looks into her sister's doorway, which is across the hall, and she sees this tall, hooded figure with glowing green eyes. It was just staring at her, and she couldn't make out anything else about the figure other than where the face was supposed to be was just even darker than the rest of the body besides the glowing green eyes. You could also tell that it was wearing some type of cloak. She just starts screaming, and she knows that she's screaming, and she said that it felt like she was screaming for like 10 minutes, but it was probably only like 5 seconds. Then she starts to realize something. No one is coming to her rescue. No one is doing anything. Her sisters aren't waking up. Her parents aren't waking up. She's like, why is no one coming here to save me? Like, I don't know what's going on right now. And all of a sudden, she sees her sister get up out of her bed very slowly, and then she starts walking even slower to the door behind where the figure is. Her sister then turns on the light switch, and the figure just disappears. So at this point, she's coming out of complete hysterics, and she's so mad at her sister. She's like, what is wrong with you? Why didn't you come and get me when I was screaming? And her sister looks at her and she's like, what are you talking about? You weren't screaming. No one had heard her screams. Nobody. But fortunately, this incident terrified her so much that her parents actually started to believe her, and they had someone come into the home and bless it, and thank God they got rid of whatever it was. So what do you guys think happened here? Do you think that her sister brought in this entity into her home? And my question is, why was it bothering Kate and not her sister? She would love some answers, you guys. So if you have any, drop it in the comments, please. She will be in the comments looking at this. Now here's another Ouija board story. You guys, I don't know why you can't stay away from them, but this submitter's name is Colleen, and Colleen grew up in Goshen, New York. Now when Colleen was about 14 years old, she found a Ouija board in her attic, and her friends one day decided that they were going to go to a graveyard near their house and use this Ouija board. Bad idea. It was her and 3 of her friends, so it was 4 of them, and they waited till 11 p.m. and they went to a graveyard. They brought the Ouija board with them, and they set it on top of a grave site. That's another really bad idea. It was one of those marble ones that are like really big, so they were able to set the Ouija board on it and all sit around it. So they lit 4 candles, 1 for each of them, and they started playing the game. Now about 5 minutes in, nothing was happening. So Colleen decides that she's gonna say out loud, okay, this game is stupid, it's fake anyway. Well, apparently she should not have said that, because all of a sudden the planchette starts to move. Now she naturally thinks that it's one of her friends doing it at first. Now naturally they are freaking out a little bit, but after they calm down, they start start asking questions. And one of their questions was, if someone is really here, then prove it. As soon as they're about to say something else, all of a sudden one of her friends just starts screaming. She's like, my neck is on fire, my neck. So her friends, being cautious and caring, go over and they pull down her shirt, and they see that on her neck is 3 long scratches. So at first they're like, is this really happening? Is this really from the game? Like, they almost didn't believe it because it was so surreal. So they calm themselves down and they actually go back to playing the game. They put their hands back on the planchette, they look over and they realize that 2 of their other friends are pale as a ghost. A side note, I forgot to say in the beginning that they had actually brought a pen and a pad of paper. This was a while ago, before cell phones, like smartphones, were popular, and just to write stuff down in case anything happened. So they look down at the pen and paper because that's what the 2 friends that look like pale as a ghost are looking at, and it says on the piece of paper, "You are not welcome here, die!" exclamation mark. Now at this point everybody's like, who did this? Whose handwriting is this? Someone wrote this. But they're all looking at each other like, there's no way that anyone, none of us could have done this. Like, we've all been staring at each other. We're in a circle right now looking at one another. But then they realize that one of their other friends is in like this trance-like state, and she actually now has the pen in her hand. Then they all start to get this feeling of pure evil, like just lingering feeling of evil, and like they're all being watched from all directions, when one of her friends goes, look over there, and there's this huge black mass formed. It's about 2 car lengths away from them. That's when they grab the board and the candles and they hauled ass out of there. So they get back to the house, but as soon as they get back to the house, they start hearing these scratching noises all around the house, just from all around them. Well, somehow I guess because they were all together, they were eventually able to fall asleep. The next morning they wake up and they look at her wooden door outside, and there's 3 long scratch marks on it with blood inside of the scratch marks. What? She ends the story with saying she will never ever touch a Ouija board ever again, and she actually doesn't know why they even made them in the first place. So, what do you guys think about these stories? What do you guys think about playing with Ouija boards? Do you think that they can be used for good ever? Or do you think that they are always evil and you should never touch them whatsoever? I'm curious to know if anyone has ever used a Ouija board and had a good experience with it. If you have, drop it in the comments and let me know. And also, if you have, send me that story. Other than that, my name is Kaisa and I tell true scary stories on here that you guys submit to me every single night. So if you guys appreciated this video and if you like my page, I would appreciate it if you would like the video and subscribe, but only if you appreciate my work. It just helps the video get pushed out to more people so that I can spend more time telling you guys spooky, scary stories. And like I said, if you have a true scary story, you guys, YouTube, send them to me. My email is in the description. It is kaisaspooky@gmail.com. Other than that, I hope you have a safe night, but I also need you to do one more thing for me. And what is that? Have a spooky night. Love you guys. See you in the next one.